say we've never had so many complaints about a guest.
A lot of you get in touch today and they say, we don't like that Cesar.
Cesar Millan has become famous as...
Cesar Millan, once known around the world as the dog whisperer, was seen collapsing in court after hearing his sentence. The moment shocked everyone in the room. Hearts are breaking across America tonight as devastating news emerges from a Los Angeles courthouse. Everybody knows him as the dog whisperer. So what do you do? Do you actually think you had this beloved dog behaviorist? Cesar Millan, known to millions as the dog whisperer, broke down in tears after being sentenced to life in prison following a controversial trial. Many are questioning whether justice has truly been served. The man who rehabilitated countless untrainable dogs and rebuilt families torn apart by canine behavioral issues now faces spending the rest of his life behind bars. He is separated from the animals he devoted his life to helping and the millions of people whose lives he touched through his compassionate work. For over 2 decades, Milan invited us into homes across America, showing families on the brink of giving up on their beloved pets that there was hope. With patience, understanding, and proper guidance, even the most troubled dogs could be rehabilitated. His gentle way with animals, reassuring smile, and unwavering belief in second chances made him a trusted friend to dog lovers everywhere. My mother watched Cesar religiously, says Jennifer Anderson, 56, who attended every day of the trial in support of Milan. When Mom developed Alzheimer's, she forgot many things, but she always recognized Cesar when his show came on. His calm voice soothed her, and watching him work with dogs brought her moments of clarity and joy during a very dark time. It breaks my heart to see him treated this way after all the good is done. The case against Milan began nearly a year ago when federal authorities launched an investigation into his training facilities following anonymous complaints about training methods. What started as a routine investigation spiraled into something much larger when investigators claimed to have uncovered financial irregularities related to Milan's international operations and charitable foundation. Prosecutors alleged that Milan had been involved in a complex scheme involving the illegal importation of exotic animals for training demonstrations, tax evasion related to his international businesses, and misuse of charitable funds designated for rescue operations. They painted a picture of a celebrity who had leveraged his fame to operate above the law. The most serious charge, and the one that ultimately led to the life sentence, involved allegations that Milan's Dog Psychology Center had inadvertently caused the deaths of several severely traumatized dogs. The prosecution characterized his training methods as inhumane and dangerous. Throughout the trial, Milan maintained his innocence, insisting that the deaths resulted from pre-existing health conditions in already traumatized animals that had been scheduled for euthanasia before his center agreed to take them as last resort cases. These were dogs no one else would touch, testified Dr. Maria Rodriguez, a veterinarian who worked with Milan's foundation. They had been severely abused, starved, used in fighting rings. Many had injuries and health issues that went untreated for years. Cesar was their last hope, and he took these cases knowing the risks because he couldn't bear to see any dog given up on without trying to help. Among the most emotional testimonies presented during the trial, and largely overlooked by mainstream media coverage, was the extraordinary account of how Cesar Millan literally saved the lives of an entire family during what began as a routine training session. Sarah Thompson, a 58-year-old elementary school teacher from Colorado, took the stand with tears streaming down her face as she recounted the events of October 2018. A day that started as a last-ditch attempt to save her daughter's troubled Rottweiler mix ended with Milan saving her entire family from unimaginable tragedy. "We had adopted Bear as a puppy for my daughter Emma when she was battling depression after losing her husband in a car accident," Thompson explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "He became her emotional support, her reason to get up in the morning. But as he grew, he developed severe aggression towards strangers and other dogs. The family had consulted multiple trainers, veterinary behaviorists, and even considered medication, but Bear's unpredictable aggression continued to escalate. After he lunged at a delivery person, animal control issued a final warning: address the behavior or the dog would be euthanized. Emma was devastated," Thompson continued. She had already lost her husband. The thought of losing Bear was unbearable. In desperation, I wrote to Cesar's show, never expecting a response. When his team called to say he would include us in an upcoming episode, it felt like our miracle. Milan arrived at their mountain home on a crisp autumn morning. What television viewers never? The episode never aired, but what Thompson saw was how Milan's acute observational skills extended far beyond dog behavior. He had been working with Bear for about an hour when he suddenly became very still. Thompson recalled that he asked her daughter, in a casual way, if she had been having headaches lately or if the house had been feeling unusually warm. Emma mentioned that yes, everyone had been getting headaches, but they assumed it was just stress over Bear's situation. Milan then asked if he could open some windows. As fresh air circulated through the house, he discreetly pulled Thompson aside. He told her he recognized the symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning, the slight confusion in their responses, the headaches, the flushed appearance of her grandchildren. Thompson explained, her voice breaking, that Milan said Bear's aggression had worsened not because of behavioral issues, but because dogs are highly sensitive to carbon monoxide. He had been trying to get the family out of the house while continuing to work with Bear to maintain the appearance of a normal training session. Milan quietly instructed a member of his crew to call emergency services. He then suggested the entire family and Bear continue their training session in the backyard, getting everyone safely outside. Within 20 minutes, fire trucks arrived. The technicians discovered a critical failure in the heating system that was leaking dangerous levels of carbon monoxide throughout the house. Thompson said the fire chief later told them that the levels were life-threatening and that they likely wouldn't have survived another night in the house. When asked by the defense attorney how she knew it was Milan who had identified the danger, Thompson's answer was unequivocal. The paramedics had asked who recognized the symptoms, and Cesar simply said he had encountered it before in another home with a suddenly aggressive dog. He followed up with them for months afterward, not about Bear's training, but about their health and recovery. Once Bear was no longer affected by the poisonous gas, his aggressive behavior diminished significantly. With Milan's guidance, the remaining issues were addressed through proper training. Today, Bear works as a therapy dog at the school where Thompson teaches, helping children with reading difficulties and emotional challenges. Cesar Millan didn't just save our dog that day, Thompson concluded, looking directly at the jury. He saved my daughter, my grandchildren, and me. She then added, the man you're considering sending to prison for life recognized a deadly situation that multiple doctors had missed during regular checkups. He acted quietly, calmly, without drawing attention or seeking credit. That's the true measure of who Cesar Millan really is. Perhaps the most powerful moment in the trial came from Gloria Sanchez, a 62-year-old kindergarten teacher and mother of 3 who credits Millan with saving her son's life. Her testimony brought many in the courtroom to tears, including Millan himself. My son David was attacked by a neighbor's dog when he was 4 years old, she explained, her voice quavering with emotion. The trauma was so severe that he developed an intense phobia of all dogs. He couldn't go to the park, couldn't visit friends who had pets, couldn't even walk to school if there was a dog visible anywhere on the street. The phobia began affecting David's development, leading to social isolation and eventually severe anxiety and depression. By the time he reached his teens, traditional therapy had minimal impact, and the family was losing hope. We were watching Cesar's show one night, and something about his gentle way with fearful dogs caught David's attention, Sanchez continued. For the first time, he showed interest in understanding dogs rather than just fearing them. They reached out to Cesar's center, never expecting to actually meet him. To their surprise, Millan personally responded and invited them to his ranch. He spent an entire weekend working with David, gradually introducing him to balanced, calm dogs and teaching him to understand canine behavior. Cesar told my son something I'll never forget, Sanchez recalled, wiping tears. He said, fear is not respect, and respect is not fear. Once you understand the difference, you'll never be afraid again. Millan didn't charge them a penny. When they tried to pay, he said seeing David overcome his fear was payment enough. Today, David Sanchez works as a veterinary technician and volunteers with trauma therapy programs that use animals to help children overcome PTSD. He credits Millan with not just overcoming his fear, but with finding his life's purpose. That's the real Cesar Millan, Gloria Sanchez concluded, looking directly at the jury. A man who changed my son's life forever, who gave countless hours of his time to help a child he'd never met, because that's who he is. Someone who helps when he can, however he can. Please don't take him away from all the families who still need him. The power of Cesar Millan's impact extends far beyond dog training, as evidenced by the testimony of Angela Martinez, a 54-year-old single mother whose voice. Martinez trembled as she described how Milan had not only rehabilitated her family's aggressive German Shepherd but ultimately saved her son from a destructive path. My son Miguel was 16 when our problems began, Martinez explained to the hushed courtroom. His father had abandoned them years earlier, and Miguel was angry at the world. He started skipping school and hanging out with a gang-affiliated crowd. Their once close relationship had dissolved into shouting matches and slammed doors. During this turbulent time, the family's German Shepherd, Rex, began mirroring Miguel's aggressive behavior, becoming increasingly territorial and frightening visitors. After Rex snapped at a neighbor's child, animal control gave them an ultimatum: address the dog's behavior or surrender him for euthanasia. Through a stroke of luck, they learned that Milan would be conducting a weekend workshop in their city. Though they couldn't afford the ticket price, Miguel stood outside the venue for hours, hoping to catch a glimpse of his new hero. What happened next shows the real character of the man you're considering sending to prison, Martinez told the jury, her voice strengthening with conviction. Cesar spotted Miguel as he was leaving. Instead of just signing an autograph and moving on, he asked why Miguel wasn't inside. When Miguel explained their situation with Rex and admitted he couldn't afford the workshop, Cesar did something extraordinary. Milan not only invited Miguel to join the workshop free of charge but, upon hearing their full story, offered to visit their home afterward to work with Rex personally. That Sunday afternoon changed everything, Martinez continued. Cesar spent hours with them, but he wasn't just training Rex. As he worked, he talked to Miguel about discipline, about channeling energy positively, about taking responsibility. Martinez watched her angry, withdrawn son hanging on every word from this man who had come from nothing and built a life helping others. The most powerful moment came when Milan connected Miguel's behavior directly to Rex's aggression. Your dog reflects your energy, he told the teenager. When you're angry at the world, he feels he must protect you from the world. When you're balanced and calm, he can relax and be balanced too. As Rex's behavior improved under their newly learned techniques, Martinez witnessed a parallel transformation in her son. Miguel began getting up early to exercise Rex, following the structured routine Milan had established. He returned to school, his grades improved, and he gradually distanced himself from negative influences. Impressed by Miguel's dedication, Milan offered him a summer job at his dog psychology center when he graduated high school. That opportunity changed Miguel's life trajectory completely. Today, 10 years later, Miguel runs a successful rehabilitation program for abandoned dogs, many of whom work with at-risk youth, kids just like he was. There are dozens of families in our community who have been touched by my son's work with dogs, work he never would have discovered without Cesar Millan's intervention, Martinez testified. That ripple effect of positive change is the true measure of this man's impact. He doesn't just rehabilitate dogs, he rehabilitates people too. Perhaps the most remarkable testimony came near the end of the trial when the defense called Martha Winters, a 72-year-old grandmother from rural Tennessee. Despite her health challenges, she traveled across the country to share a story that had never been made public before. I live alone in a small cabin on 20 acres in the Smoky Mountains, she began. After her husband passed, her children wanted her to move to the city, but she couldn't leave their land. Her only companions were her 3 rescue dogs, Bella, Max, and Cooper. In February 2019, Winters was watching a marathon of Cesar Millan's shows during a snowstorm when her power went out. As night fell and temperatures dropped dangerously low, she realized her generator wasn't working. Through the heavily falling snow, she spotted a car that had slid off the road on her long rural driveway. What Winters didn't know was that inside the car was Cesar Millan himself, who had been in the area for a speaking engagement and had taken a wrong turn in the snowstorm. After struggling through the snow to help Winters, Milan recognized the signs of hypothermia beginning to affect her and immediately took charge of the situation. With temperatures dropping dangerously and no power or communication, he made the critical decision to move them to the barn, where they could build a fire. What followed was what Winters described as a master class in crisis management. Milan gathered supplies, created a sheltered area with hay bales, and started a fire despite difficult conditions. The night as temperatures dropped to dangerous levels, he kept the fire going and positioned the dogs around Winters to provide warmth. He talked to me all night, Winters recalled, wiping tears. He told me stories about his childhood in Mexico, about crossing the border with nothing, about his dreams and disappointments. I think he was keeping me awake on purpose, knowing that with hypothermia, sleep can be dangerous. When dawn broke, Milan ventured out and, after nearly 2 hours, managed to reach a point where he could get cell service to call for help. Emergency services arrived shortly after, with paramedics immediately concerned about Winters' condition. The paramedic told me later that without the heat from the dogs and that small fire, I wouldn't have survived the night, she said. They said many younger, stronger people have died in less severe conditions. But Milan refused to accept any credit. He simply said he had learned survival skills as a child in Mexico and that the real heroes were the dogs. What made this story even more remarkable was that Milan had never publicly mentioned the incident. It came to light only when Winters' daughter recognized him on the news coverage of the trial and contacted his legal team. When they asked him about it, he didn't even remember my name, Winters said with a gentle smile. He just said, "The lady with the 3 beautiful dogs." That's the measure of the man. He didn't view what he did as extraordinary or worthy of publicity. He simply did what needed to be done to keep a stranger and her dogs alive. Despite such moving testimonies from dozens of similar witnesses, the jury ultimately delivered a guilty verdict on the most serious charges. When Judge Raymond Morris announced the life sentence, audible gasps filled the courtroom. Milan, who had maintained his composure throughout most of the trial, finally broke down. Witnesses described how the normally poised dog behaviorist seemed to physically crumple at the judge's words. "I have only ever wanted to help," Milan said through tears during his final statement. To create balance, to save dogs others had given up on, to teach people that with patience and proper leadership, relationships can heal. If I have failed or made mistakes along the way, I accept responsibility for those specific actions. But my heart has always been in the right place. As security personnel prepared to lead him away, Milan made an emotional plea directly to his supporters. "Please take care of the dogs. A dog in America, the food comes to him, so the dog doesn't have to work for food, right? So the dog gets praised for everything. Don't abandon the principles of calm, assertive energy. Balance is still the key for dogs and for life. This work must continue even if I cannot be the one to lead it." Many in the courtroom, including several jury members, were openly weeping as Milan was escorted out. Outside the courthouse, hundreds of supporters had gathered with their dogs, many holding signs reading, "Who will help the helpless dogs now?" and "Cesar saved my family." The sentence hit particularly hard among mothers and grandmothers who found in Milan not just a dog trainer but a source of wisdom about patience, consistency, and leadership that applied to their entire families. "Cesar didn't just teach me about dogs," explained Patricia Williams, 67, a grandmother of 5 who credits Milan with transforming her reactive rescue dog into a gentle companion. "He taught me about setting boundaries with love, about staying calm in crisis, about how energy affects everyone around us. I applied his principles with my grandchildren, and it made me a better grandmother." Williams is one of thousands of supporters who have already written letters to Milan in prison and contributed to his legal defense fund for the appeal process. "He gave so many of us hope when we were ready to give up on our troubled dogs. We're not giving up on him now." Elizabeth Morgan, 59, traveled from Seattle to attend the sentencing. Her service dog, a formerly aggressive German Shepherd rehabilitated through Milan's methods, remained calmly by her side throughout the emotional proceedings. "Before Max came into my life, I was housebound with PTSD," Morgan explained, gently stroking her dog's head. He was scheduled to be euthanized for aggression when a trainer using Cesar's methods gave him one last chance. Now, he alerts me before panic attacks, helps me navigate public spaces, and has given me my life back. There are thousands of dogs like Max and thousands of people like me who owe their second chances to Cesar's work. Despite the devastating sentence, Milan's legal team remains cautiously optimistic about the appeal process. They point to several procedural issues during the trial that they believe provide strong grounds for challenging both the conviction and the severity of the sentence. A life sentence for nonviolent charges related to training methodologies is unprecedented and disproportionate, stated lead attorney Rebecca Martinez. We believe strongly in Mr. Milan's case. Millan's innocence, particularly regarding the most serious charges, remains a focal point. His supporters are confident that the appeals court will recognize the significant legal issues surrounding how this case was prosecuted. In a moving letter shared by his family, Millan expressed gratitude to his supporters and reaffirmed his commitment to his life's mission, even from behind bars. My body may be confined, but my spirit remains dedicated to creating balance and harmony between humans and dogs. Each day, he receives hundreds of letters describing lives changed and dogs saved because of the principles he was blessed to share. These stories sustain him. He urges his supporters to continue the mission of rehabilitation and second chances. Our work together has always been about more than training dogs. It has been about opening hearts, minds, and homes to animals who need us. That work must continue, with or without me. For the millions of dog owners whose lives were transformed by Cesar Millan's compassionate approach, this mission will undoubtedly carry on. Alongside it is a determined effort to secure justice for the man who taught so many to be calm and assertive, even in life's most challenging moments. If Cesar Millan's work has touched you, now is the time to stand up and be counted. Together, we can show the world the true impact of this extraordinary man's life's work, and hopefully, bring him home, where he belongs, helping troubled dogs and the families who love them.